The Poet's Garden was painted in 1889 by the famous Dutch post-impressionist artist Vincent van Gogh. At first glance, this painting may appear to simply depict a lush garden near Van Gogh's home filled with flowers and plants. But the intriguing backstory and dramatic events that led to Van Gogh's mental distress, culminating in the self-mutilation of his ear, adds an additional layer of depth to the significance of this painting. Vincent van Gogh was a Dutch artist whose work had a significant impact on 20th century art. Born in the village of Groot-Zundert, Netherlands in 1853, Van Gogh was a troubled and erratic man who struggled with mental illness throughout his life. Despite this, he created an incredible body of work that included some of the most iconic and beloved paintings in art history. In February 1888, Vincent van Gogh left Paris for Arles, in southern France, with the hope that the region's warm climate would inspire and revitalize his artistic practice. Thanks to financial support from his brother Theo, who was an art dealer, he was able to secure a small residence in September known as the Yellow House. Van Gogh quickly began to envision creating a utopian colony of brother artists called the Studio of the South, where artists could come to southern France to paint in a more prominent setting. He believed Paul Gauguin, an artist he had come to admire, and who had been introduced to him by his brother Theo the previous year, would be the perfect painter to join him in Arles. With the assistance of his brother, Van Gogh was able to convince Gauguin to come to Provence and collaborate with him in the pursuit of establishing the Studio of the South. Van Gogh began a series of paintings for Gauguin's bedroom in anticipation of his arrival in Arles. 4 of these pieces depict the Poet's Garden, a small enclosed public park in front of the Yellow House. Van Gogh's second-floor bedroom overlooked Place Lamartine, a small public park that served as a lush oasis in the middle of the bustling town of Arles. Despite the view itself being underwhelming, Van Gogh instilled great vitality in the park's unkempt grass and trees with repetitive brush strokes and thick impasto, especially in the chrome-yellow sky and scraggly foliage. A compact round bush and a weeping tree stand out amidst the vibrant autumn tapestry. The purplish tower of St. Trophine's Church, visible to the left, is the only reminder of the bustling town beyond the garden walls. Van Gogh's repetitive brushstrokes and thick impasto convey the vitality of the garden. Seasons appear to change before our eyes, from summer's lush greens to fall's crisp deep golds. The citron sky is made up of layered horizontal yellow and lime strokes that give the sky both solidity and vibrancy. Rather than concentrating on the optical effect of juxtaposed complementary colors, Van Gogh appears to be more interested in the overall effect of a more limited palette. This serene sunny landscape was the first in a 4-painting series intended as a decor for Gauguin's bedroom in the Yellow House. Van Gogh was able to maintain an ongoing dialogue with his potential collaborator. The two artists exchanged ideas, questions, and artistic philosophies in their letters, and the Poet's Garden paintings became visual manifestations of the letters' words. Van Gogh named the painting The Poet's Garden to allude to the 14th-century poets Francesco Petrarch and Giovanni Boccaccio, whom he had been reading about in a recently published article on Italian Renaissance literature. In a letter to Paul Gauguin, Van Gogh stated, "And I set out to paint that garden in such a way that one is put in mind of the old poet from these parts, Petrarch, and of the new poet from these parts, Paul Gauguin." Van Gogh's inclusion of the oleander bush, the scraggly limbs of the weeping tree to the right, and the upright cypress tree adds to the symbolic associations. Van Gogh assigned meaning to the painting based on personal and conventional symbols. The oleander bush represented Boccaccio and hoped that the two painters' new collaboration would be fruitful. The weeping tree represented mourning and loss, and the cypress represented death and immortality. Gauguin accepted Van Gogh's invitation to come stay in Arles, and the two artists collaborated for nearly 2 months. However, their friendship gradually unraveled as Gauguin began to realize that their artistic ideologies were diverging. This growing tension caused stress for both men, ultimately culminating in Van Gogh experiencing an episode of mental distress on December 23, 1888, that led to self-mutilation of his earlobe. Van Gogh allegedly packaged up the ear and gave it to a prostitute in a nearby brothel. Gauguin subsequently packed his bags and left for Paris. Van Gogh was hospitalized in Arles and then checked himself into a mental institution in Saint-Rémy for a year. During his stay in Saint-Rémy, Van Gogh fluctuated between periods of madness and intense creativity, in which he produced some of his best and most well-known works, including Starry Night and Irises. Van Gogh's physical and mental health would continue to deteriorate, and the following year he would tragically take his own life.